the world remembers him as a conqueror. But long before the name Genghis Khan thundered across continents, history recorded the birth of a boy who should not have survived. On the remote Mongolian steppe, where winters could kill a man overnight and rival clans hunted each other without hesitation, Temujin entered a world defined by danger, scarcity, and shifting power. Nothing about his beginnings suggested destiny, yet the empire he would forge would redraw maps, reorder civilizations, and reshape the very idea of leadership. Genghis Khan's story matters because it is one of the rare lives in history where a single individual altered the course of entire regions. His rise was not merely military. It was psychological, strategic, and deeply human. He did not inherit a throne. He carved one out of a fractured land, assembling loyalty from the unlikeliest of places. He built a new order atop the ruins of tribal chaos, and in doing so, created the largest contiguous empire the world has ever known. But behind the legend stands a more compelling question. How did a boy abandoned after his father's murder, forced to scavenge for food, hunted by his own kin, transform into a leader whose decisions still ripple through modern borders, warfare, and governance? What internal shift turned trauma into discipline, fear into strategy, and loss into an unbreakable sense of purpose? This biography begins at the intersection of brutality and brilliance, where a child's struggle for survival became the foundation of a world-changing mind. His life is a study in resilience, in the forging of power through adversity, and in the relentless pursuit of unity across a land defined by division. To understand Genghis Khan is not to trace a path of conquest. It is to uncover how an ordinary life becomes extraordinary. And it all begins on the edge of the steppe. The Mongolian steppe in the 12th century was a place where survival was never guaranteed, even for the strong. Its endless grasslands carried winter winds that could flay exposed skin and summers so dry they could starve entire tribes. In this harsh world, where clans rose and fell with the seasons, a boy named Temujin was born into the Borjigin tribe around 1162. His birth occurred at a time when the steppe was fractured by feuds, opportunistic raids, and betrayals that shaped alliances for only as long as they were advantageous. It was a landscape that demanded resilience, and it would test the boy from the moment he opened his eyes. Temujin's father, Yesugei, was a respected warrior and chieftain, strong enough to protect his people, but constantly navigating the fragile politics among Mongol clans. His mother, Huilun, had been taken from another tribe as a young woman, a stark reminder of the steppe's brutal customs. Yet within the walls of their ger, she played a grounding role, disciplined, resourceful, and fiercely protective. She would become the most formative influence in Temujin's early emotional world. It is said that Temujin was born clutching a blood clot in his hand, a symbol Mongols believed foretold a life of leadership and violence. Whether myth or memory, the detail speaks to how storytellers understood the trajectory of his life. Even if destiny was not written at birth, the environment ensured that any child who survived long enough to lead would have to endure trials that hardened the body and sharpened the will. Temujin's earliest years were shaped by a mix of familial warmth and the ever-present threat of war. He learned to ride almost as soon as he learned to walk. He listened at night as elders spoke of clan rivalries, raids, and legends of heroes who unified tribes only to die by betrayal. Every story carried lessons. Loyalty was fragile, leadership was earned through action, and fear was a weapon for those who knew how to wield it. His father often traveled on political missions, forging temporary alliances and negotiating marriages that could strengthen the tribe's future. One such negotiation would alter Temujin's life: the arrangement of his betrothal to Borta, a girl from the powerful Ongirat tribe. Temujin was still a child, but the steppe did not wait for adulthood to shape destiny. As part of the agreement, he stayed for a short period with Borta's family, a gesture symbolizing trust. It was a rare moment of stability, a glimpse of a life not defined by constant struggle. But stability was not a luxury allowed to him for long. On his return journey, Yasuge fell ill after being poisoned by rival Tatars. He died before reaching home. The death of a chieftain often marked the collapse of the fragile structure holding a tribe together. Temujin was roughly 9 years old, and suddenly, without the protection of his father's name, he and his family became vulnerable. The aftermath was swift and merciless. The Taichiud clan, who had once sworn loyalty to Yasuge, abandoned Hölln and her children. They were driven away, stripped of status, and left to fend for themselves in the wilderness. For Temujin, this betrayal became one of the defining emotional fractures of his life. The clan system that promised loyalty had proven itself hollow. The world as he understood it cracked open, replaced by a harsher truth. Only those who could endure suffering would survive it. The family took refuge near the Onan River, living in conditions far more desperate than before. Food was scarce. They scavenged roots, berries, and whatever small animals they could trap. Hölln became the anchor, teaching her children to persist, adapt, and never surrender to despair. Her resilience carved itself into Temujin's character, teaching him that even brutality could be met with discipline and purpose. These years in the wilderness forged not only his physical toughness, but also an early understanding of human nature. He watched how scarcity bred conflict, how brothers could turn on each other, and how even children could carry grudges sharper than blades. His relationship with his half-brother Bator grew increasingly strained. Bator was older, and by tradition, could claim authority over the family. But Temujin, shaped by circumstance and a burning sense of responsibility, resisted this idea. Tension escalated until one day Temujin and his full brother Kasar confronted Bator in the grasslands. The conflict ended violently with Bator's death. While historians debate the exact motives, the emotional imprint on Temujin was unmistakable. Power had consequences, leadership demanded sacrifice, and hesitation could destroy a future. This act, grim as it was, marked a transition. Temujin began to think less like a dependent child and more like someone who intended to lead, not someday, but now. He became fiercely protective of his siblings, more strategic in his movements, and increasingly aware of how fragile survival could be. Yet his trials were far from over. In his mid-teens, he was captured by the Taichiud, the very clan that had cast his family aside. They enslaved him, placing a heavy wooden collar around his neck and making him a symbol of humiliation. For any other youth, this could have broken the spirit. But Temujin watched, listened, and waited. He studied the rhythms of his captors, memorized their habits, and searched for the moment when one mistake could open an escape. That moment came one night when his guard grew careless. Temujin struck, killing the guard, and fleeing into the darkness of the steppe. He hid in riverbeds and forests, relying on instinct and the memory of landscapes he had roamed as a child. The escape was more than a physical act. It was the psychological confirmation that he would no longer accept his fate as dictated by clans or tradition. He refused to be a victim of the world he was born into. After returning to his family, he began rebuilding bonds with those who remained loyal, including close companions like Jelme and Boorchu, relationships formed not through blood, but through trust earned in hardship. These men would later become pillars of his leadership, demonstrating that loyalty built through genuine respect could be stronger than the forced alliances of clan politics. As Temujin approached adulthood, he carried with him the lessons carved from early suffering: the betrayal of allies, the cruelty of hunger, the humiliation of captivity, and the unbreakable foundation laid by a mother who refused to collapse under pressure. Every hardship became fuel. Every wound became strategy. Every moment of pain became a blueprint for the leader he was becoming. The boy who had been abandoned, hunted, and enslaved was no longer just surviving. He was preparing. The steppe that had tried to crush him had instead sharpened him. And the world that once overlooked him was about to encounter a force shaped entirely by experience, forged by adversity, and destined to shift history itself. When Temujin emerged from his youth, the Mongolian steppe was entering one of its most volatile eras. Dozens of tribes claimed dominance, yet none possessed the unity or discipline required to control the land. Loyalties shifted with the wind, and every chieftain imagined himself strong enough to rule, yet weak enough to fear betrayal. Into this fractured landscape stepped a young man whose identity had been forged not by privilege, but by hardship. The years of abandonment and captivity had not broken Temujin. They had prepared him. What followed would reshape the destiny of the steppe, and, eventually, half the world. His first major step toward power came with his reunion with Borta, the woman to whom he had been promised in childhood. Their marriage restored a vital alliance with the Ongirat tribe, and gave Temujin the first real political foothold he had held since his father's death. Yet almost immediately, fate tested him again. Borta was abducted by the Merkit, a long-standing enemy of his family. Temujin refused to accept this as a personal tragedy. Instead, he transformed it into the first decisive demonstration of his leadership. He sought help from two powerful figures: his blood brother Jamuka, who came from noble lineage, and Togrul, also known as Ong Khan, a key ally of his father. Together, they launched a swift and brutal campaign against the Merkit, rescuing Borta and signaling to the steppe that Temujin was no longer a marginalized youth. He was a force capable of commanding loyalty, forging alliances, and delivering victory. But alliances on the steppe were unstable. Jamuka saw Temujin's growing influence as a threat. Though they had once sworn brotherhood, ambition drove a wedge between them. Jamuka represented the traditional aristocratic order of the steppe, while Temujin represented something entirely new: a merit-based leadership that elevated individuals through loyalty and ability, not birth. This ideological divide set the stage for a conflict far deeper than a simple rivalry. It was a battle over the future structure of Mongol society. Temujin's early campaigns revealed a leadership style rarely seen among tribal chiefs. He rewarded loyalty regardless of lineage, treated common soldiers with respect, and implemented an uncommonly strict but fair system of discipline. In contrast to the familiar chaos of steppe warfare, Temujin demanded organization. He divided his warriors into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, an innovation that allowed unprecedented speed and coordination. His military reforms were not just tactical, they were psychological. By giving each man a clear place in a larger whole, he created a sense of identity that transcended tribal divisions. The first major clash with Jamuka came in the late 1180s. Although Jamuka won that battle, the aftermath revealed a stark difference between their leadership philosophies. Jamuka punished defectors and enemies with cruelty that terrified the steppe. Temujin, in contrast, granted amnesty to captured warriors, recognizing that fear could force submission, but fairness could inspire loyalty. The steppe noticed. Warriors began to drift away from traditional aristocrats and toward the man who offered stability and opportunity. In 1206, after nearly 2 decades of conflict, shifting alliances, strategic retreats, and hard-fought victories, Temujin achieved what many believed impossible. At a grand assembly known as a Kurultai, the tribes of the Mongolian plateau united under his leadership. The title bestowed upon him that day, Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler, formalized not just his authority, but the birth of a new nation. For the first time in its history, the Mongol steppe stood as a single political entity. This unification was his first great achievement, but it was only the beginning. Genghis Khan immediately channeled the energy of the newly united tribes outward. The steppe, with its limited resources, had long pushed nomadic peoples to seek expansion. But under Genghis Khan, expansion became a disciplined, strategic enterprise rather than a series of opportunistic raids. His first major campaign targeted the Western Xia dynasty of China. The Xia commanded fortified cities and armies far larger than anything the Mongols had encountered. Yet Genghis Khan's forces moved with astonishing coordination. They used psychological warfare, feigned retreats, and rapid encirclement tactics to break the Xia defenses. The campaign ended not with total destruction, but with the submission of Xia, a demonstration of Mongol dominance delivered with calculated precision. The campaign against the Jin dynasty, which controlled northern China, displayed an even more extraordinary level of strategic thinking. Facing an enemy with vast populations, advanced siege technologies, and formidable defenses, Genghis Khan adopted and improved techniques from captured engineers. The Mongols who had once lived in, felt tents on open plains, now commanded catapults, siege towers, and incendiary weapons. The transformation of a nomadic warrior society into a multifaceted military machine reflected Genghis Khan's extraordinary adaptability. His genius was not just in conquest, but in learning, integrating, and innovating. Yet perhaps the most defining military moment of his career occurred far to the west. In 1219, after a series of diplomatic tensions and a deadly incident involving a murdered trade caravan, Genghis Khan launched a campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire, an expansive, wealthy state spanning Persia and Central Asia. The scale of this campaign stunned the medieval world. The Mongols crossed deserts considered impassable, besieged cities thought impregnable, and executed a series of meticulously synchronized operations that revealed the full power of the Mongol war machine. Genghis Khan's army moved with a combination of speed, discipline, and intelligence gathering unmatched by any contemporary force. Scouts rode hundreds of miles ahead, reporting detailed information. Commanders executed multi-front assaults across thousands of kilometers, appearing where they were least expected. Cities that resisted suffered devastating consequences, while those that submitted often survived with their infrastructure mostly intact. The campaign shattered the Khwarezmian Empire and permanently shifted the political landscape of the region. Beyond conquest, Genghis Khan's achievements included groundbreaking reforms that transformed the Mongol Empire into an administrative and commercial powerhouse. He established a law code known as the Yasa, which formalized rules for military discipline, trade, family conduct, and governance. He developed an international postal relay system, the YAM, which allowed messages to cross vast territories with unprecedented speed. He supported trade along the Silk Road, offering protection to merchants and encouraging the exchange of ideas, goods, and technologies. Under his leadership, religious tolerance became an official policy. Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and shamans all found space within the empire. This approach was not rooted in modern concepts of equality, but in strategic pragmatism. A diverse empire required stability, and stability required flexibility. By the time Genghis Khan's life neared its end, his empire stretched from the edges of the Korean peninsula to the Caspian Sea. The scale of these accomplishments was unprecedented. Yet what made his career remarkable was not only the territory he conquered, but the systems he built, the unity he forged, and the psychological transformation he imposed on a region long fractured by tribal conflict. He had taken the chaos of the steppe and forged it into an engine of relentless ambition. His leadership had turned personal suffering into strategic clarity, and his achievements had placed him among the most consequential figures in world history. Behind the sweeping campaigns and vast territories was a man shaped not only by ambition, but by private battles that seldom appeared in official chronicles. Genghis Khan lived in a world where personal life and political life intertwined so tightly that separating the two became almost impossible. Yet when viewed closely, his intimate world reveals a human being marked by loyalty, loss, fear, deep emotional contradictions, and an unrelenting pursuit of order in both his public and private spheres. His marriage to Borta was the anchor around which much of his emotional life revolved. She had been with him before he possessed power, status, or the promise of greatness. Their union formed not just a political alliance, but a bond forged through hardship. When she was abducted by the Merkit and later rescued, the event left a permanent imprint on him. It fueled his animosity toward the Merkit, shaped his protective instincts toward those he loved, and deepened his resolve to never again allow those close to him to be threatened so easily. Even after rising to power, he kept Borta as his chief wife, honoring her position despite having other marriages that served political or clan-building purposes. In a world defined by shifting loyalties, his loyalty to her remained a rare constant. His family life, however, was far from simple. As a father, he navigated an emotional terrain filled with pressures unique to a man building an empire. His sons, Joki, Chagatai, Ugadei, and Tolui, were raised not only as heirs, but as potential rivals. The uncertainty surrounding Jochi's paternity, given Borta's abduction years earlier, created tension among the brothers and forced Genghis Khan to manage delicate internal disputes while ruling an empire. He insisted that unity mattered more than blood disputes, yet the tension persisted, reminding him of how fragile even his inner circle could be. His relationships with his daughters, however, reveal a different side of him. He trusted them with governing key regions, arranging strategic marriages in ways that elevated their status and influence. Unlike many rulers of his time, he recognized their political value and relied on them to secure the empire's internal stability. This reflected not only strategic brilliance, but a personal understanding of the strength he had witnessed in his own mother, Hoelun, whose resilience had shaped his earliest worldview. Despite his growing power, Genghis Khan's life remained marked by profound internal conflicts. Leadership forced him to balance ruthless decisions with moments of surprising empathy. He could order the destruction of a resisting city in one moment, and then implement policies ensuring that widows, orphans, and the vulnerable within his own people were protected. The same man who commanded unprecedented military force was also the man who cried openly at the loss of loyal generals and valued the counsel of humble herdsmen. He carried emotional scars from his youth that never fully healed. The betrayal on the Tai Chiud, the hunger that nearly killed his family, the death of Beitar. All of these memories lived beneath the surface of his decisions. Even at the height of his power, he remained wary of treachery. He kept his camp constantly mobile, changed sleeping arrangements, and rarely stayed in the same location for more than a few days. It was as if the traumas of childhood had grown into lifelong vigilance, shaping habits that protected not only his body, but his authority. One of the deepest personal challenges he faced was the gradual loss of those closest to him. Jelme, Boorchu, and the other men who had stood with him in the most desperate moments. became not just generals, but emotional pillars in his life. Their absence, whenever death claimed them, pierced him sharply. Chroniclers described moments when he mourned openly, refusing to hide the weight of grief. These scenes reveal a man who, despite his hardened exterior, felt profoundly the cost of ambition. As he aged, he struggled with the knowledge that the empire he built might fracture after his death. He had unified the steppe with a clear vision, but ensuring unity among his descendants proved far harder. He attempted to create a succession system that balanced tradition and practicality, choosing Ögedei as his successor despite the pride of other sons. The decision was rooted in a desire to maintain stability, but it also reflected a fear that the world he had forged could unravel without him. His final years were marked by increasing reflection on legacy, mortality, and the limits of human power. Throughout his personal life, he carried a contradictory mix of simplicity and enormity. He preferred modest clothing, avoided excessive displays of wealth, and continued to drink fermented mare's milk like any ordinary herdsman. Yet he ruled over millions, commanded armies that stretched across continents, and shaped the fate of civilizations. This contrast between personal humility and imperial magnitude remained one of the defining emotional tensions of his life. His greatest internal struggle, however, lay in reconciling the violence necessary for conquest with the order he sought to build afterward. He saw war as a tool, not a state of existence. He believed that once resistance stopped, justice and fairness should govern. But maintaining that fairness across vast distances, cultural differences, and competing interests proved perpetually difficult. It tested not only his strategic mind, but his emotional endurance. These private battles, loyalty, grief, fear of betrayal, conflicts among his sons, the pressure of legacy, shaped him as much as any military campaign. They revealed a man who carried the weight of an empire in public and the weight of unresolved pain in private. In understanding these challenges, the legend becomes human, and the conqueror becomes a man navigating the same emotional complexities that define every human life, amplified by the scale of his power. Conclusion: Genghis Khan's life stands as one of the most extraordinary arcs in human history, not merely because of the empire he created, but because of the journey that shaped him. His story began with abandonment, hunger, and fear, and yet it culminated in the rise of a leader who united the steppe after centuries of division. His achievements emerged from a combination of discipline, resilience, and an intuitive understanding of human nature that allowed him to command loyalty on a scale few leaders ever achieved. His legacy is vast and complex. He left behind a transformed Eurasia, a network of trade routes that encouraged global exchange, and administrative systems that provided stability across diverse cultures. The empire outlived him by generations, carried forward by successors who expanded its reach from the Korean peninsula to the gates of Europe. Yet the most enduring part of his legacy lies not in territory, but in principles: the importance of loyalty, the power of merit over birth, and the belief that resilience can reshape destiny. For modern audiences, 3 enduring lessons remain. First, adversity does not define a person. Response does. Genghis Khan's rise from abandonment to empire is proof that beginnings do not dictate endings. Second, leadership is built on loyalty, consistency, and fairness. He elevated people based on ability, not blood, creating a structure that outperformed larger and wealthier states. Third, unity is a choice, not a circumstance. He understood that divided societies fall, and that leadership requires the courage to bring people together despite differences. His story endures because it is more than history. It is a reminder of what human beings are capable of when shaped by purpose, resilience, and an unbreakable will.